Hey guys, welcome back to MassiveSynth.com tutorials. This is part 3 of the trap feature we've been doing this month on Native Instruments Massive, and in this tutorial I was going to show you how to make that whistly sub-bass sound that we had playing there, and also this kind of ARP sound that we had to accompany that bass sound. And both of these sounds I've got playing the same riff, which is this here, basically this MIDI riff. So we'll start off with this sub bass, which is effectively like a sub bass sound with just a simple sine wave, and then we've just added some extra octaves to just give it that kind of whistly sort of top end. So start off by creating a new sound in Massive, go straight for oscillator 1, and let's set this to be a sine square. Pull the wavetable position all the way to the left and pull the pitch down by 2 octaves. It's nice deep and low sound, and make sure the intensity is on full, the amp's on full. We're not going to be using any filters for this sound, so you can ignore the routing. So at the moment you should have just a simple sine wave playing that riff. So we're going to expand on that a little bit here. Turn on oscillator 2, and this is going to be a SinFormant wavetable. We're just going to add a bit more harmonics to the sound really. Pull the wavetable position all the way to the left and pull the pitch down by 2 octaves, and maybe pull the amp down a little bit as well, so maybe 2/3. It's just adding a little bit of grit to that sub bass sound really. And next up we can turn on oscillator 3 and have an Additivemix I wavetable, and this is going to give us the kind of whistly top end that we've got on that sub patch. So take the pitch down by 2 octaves, pull the wavetable position to around 1/4 of the way up, and keep the intensity on full, amp on full. And that's just adding that quite nice kind of character to the top end in the sub bass sound there. So next up we can go to the oscillator section, and we'll go to voicing first and just make the sound monophonic, and then go back to this oscillator tab and set the glide time to around about 1/3 of the way up. So it's got that nice kind of transition in between the notes there, that nice kind of glide. The next thing we can do is set the amp envelope and just back the attack off, so we're not getting any click on the sound, and we're getting just even increasing the nice kind of transition in between the notes really. Right then, so the last thing to do really with this sound, with it all set up, is add some vibrato actually. That's quite a nice character. Turn some feedback on there just to beef the sound up a little bit. And some effects. So you can start off with a classic tube and keep the dry wet around halfway, pull the drive down to around 1/3. And that's just beefing the sound up, just adding quite a nice bit of character on the sound, and also a chorus ensemble just to kind of warm it up a bit, thicken it and stuff. And just dial if you don't want too much offset in there, just pull that down, or the dry wet down, just to make that chorus a bit more subtle. I quite like it about 1/3 of the way up, so just makes it a bit thicker really. Okay, so the sub bass is done there. Let's move on to this arpeggiator sound next. Okay, so this arpeggiator here, start off by creating a new sound in Massive, program this arpeggiator. So we can start with oscillator 1, and we can keep it as a square saw, but pull the wavetable position to just past halfway, so we're getting a bit of a blend of both a square wave and a saw wave in there. You can take the pitch up by 2 octaves to just give it that nice kind of high crispy tone, and keep everything else the same for the time being. And let's go and set up oscillator 2, and this is going to be a square saw again with the wavetable position in a similar place, and take the pitch up by 1 octave, detune it slightly, so 11.87 should do. It's just helping with the character of the sound again, really, just detuning that second oscillator a little bit. Could go a bit of detuning on the first oscillator as well if we wanted to. It just gives a bit of kind of chorus kind of edge to the sound. That detuning is quite nice. And keep everything else the same for now, intensity on full, amp on full. Let's move over to the filter section next. We can actually route both of these oscillators to filter 1 and can set a low pass filter on here. Push the cutoff up to full, resonance down to 0. So just got that filter control on the arpeggiator. So probably the next thing to do really is set a performer. So we can change this LFO into a performer here, and this is arpeggiator is going to work slightly different to the normal arps that we do in these tutorials. So I'm not going to modulate the pitch of these oscillators to create the arp. The arpeggiator is actually being created using this riff, but what we're going to do with this synth is just create this performer sequence. It's going to sound quite nice and quite busy, and then with that riff it's going to sort of take it to the next level basically. So we can have this X-fade sequence, just push this all the way to the top, and we're just going to be using this top sequence here for this sound. And let's go to load curves and just change some of these shapes. So we have like one of these sort of plucky curves for starters, but take the volume down to around halfway, and then a reverse curve in the second slot, and the third and fourth, just one of these or a couple of these curves basically. And again, volume around halfway, so we're just bringing the volume of this performer sequence down a little bit. And let's modulate the amplitude of the oscillators using this performer, and then pull the amp down on both these oscillators and push, click and drag on the modulation amount, click and drag up to apply some modulation. And let's set this performer now, so let's sync it, have a ratio of 1/16. And we're getting quite a nice kind of sequence pattern there, using that riff and then that performer kind of modulation of the amp of those oscillators. We're getting quite a nice sort of pattern going on. Bring the steps of this performer down to 4, so it's just going to loop over these 4 steps like that. And then the next thing to do really is just apply some effects to the sound. So we can go for a classic tube on this again, keep the dry wet and drive around halfway, maybe pull the dry wet down a small amount, and we can add some reverb as well. Pull the dry wet down to around quarter of the way up and keep everything else the same. We can add some feedback to this sound as well. Just push the amp up to around quarter of the way up. Set the amp envelope as well, and just pull the attack all the way to the left, so we've got a nice sharp attack. And in the oscillator section, I'm going to check this restart via gate here, just to increase the consistency on the sound, and go over to the voicing section, monophonic. Give the sound 2 voices, and then we need to set the glide time now to just pull that down to 0. Now we've made the synth monophonic. We don't really want any glide on there for this sound. And yeah, the last thing to do is this unison spread really on the pitch curve. Turn that on, and just with these values here, 1 at 0 and 1 at 1.0, just bringing this pitch cutoff to the right just to apply some of that unison spread. We get that nice kind of thickness in the sound. So you can be quite subtle with that effect really, just bringing it to the right a small amount just gives us quite a nice effect on the sound, and maybe some stereo width as well. So just panning these voices out really. And that's the sound done. So there's our arpeggiator sound and our sub sound. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. You found it useful. Any questions, then please get in touch. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.